Howdy folks, and welcome to another Taste of Gameplay video, this time for the European Tier 7 Tech Tree, except right now it's kind of like a premium battleship, the Chios, the extension of the Yavuz and the Tegadev line, which they are quote-unquote giving away. If you do things, I believe for the Chios I had to do the entire month's battle pass, or whatever they call the monthly pass. The Chios is the extension of the design ideas in the Tegatov. So we're looking at a well-armored battleship with some reasonable guns, slightly higher caliber than you might expect, but a little bit lower Krupp values, so slightly disappointing penetration from time to time. Dispersion is merely adequate, maybe even slightly below average. But, you know, it's a nice tanky boat that has some torpedoes, which are quite good, especially for battleship. They go out to 10.5 kilometers. And it has this kind of fun, funky, modern style speed boost, which we'll get to in a second. But, you know, given all these attributes, I looked at this ship and said, well, it feels like this ship, because it's tanky and everything, would be good at kind of shorter range play. And guess what? Here we are on Two Brothers. So you know what that means. I mean, you know, I always say on this channel, this is not a how-to guide on how to play these ships. And also, I'm not showing you the best game that I could possibly have in these ships. So I like to take the pressure off myself to feel like I have to play the absolute best I can. And in this case, I decided, you know what, the heck with it. I'm just going to go right up the middle on Two Brothers, because why not? It doesn't seem like the Reds are leaving a lot of folks there. And this feels like a good battleship to have right up the middle on Two Brothers. So here we go. Away we go. I had a fun time this game. It's actually going to wind up being a pretty good game for me. It's going to wind up being a victory. Going to do some good damage. Going to get some kills. I feel like I'm going to be pretty effective at my chosen role here. The dispersion was disappointing. I mean, again, you know, that's the thing about this series. I'm just playing one game in general. And with the Chios specifically, this first game turned out to be a pretty good one. So I'm just showing you that. So, you know, I don't have time to study the ship. I have no idea if the bad dispersion I experienced this game is endemic to the ship or just, you know, I got unlucky. But I'm going to take, for example, a couple shots at this almost completely stationary Colorado. Admittedly, he's at pretty extreme range for these guns, but the dispersion is really going to be pretty poor, and the penetration is even worse. I mean, the Colorado is a pretty well-armored battleship, but still 4 ricochets is a little bit disappointing. I mean, yes, he's quite angled, and I definitely should be firing the HE, but you know me, I'm an AP kind of guy, and also I feel like it teaches you more about the ship, like in terms of my learning about the ship, and also in terms of showing you. HE can sort of be HE, but AP, you know, is where you really get a flavor for the ship. I really want to hit that Omaha, but I cannot get over these islands in the way. Can you even call these islands anymore? I mean, I guess that's what they are. Like, these islands are really funny in this game. They're kind of highly unrealistic, but they make for fun gameplay, so I'm fine with it. But yeah, I mean, the Chios is a pretty good brawling ship, I would say. I don't know how good of a general purpose battleship it is. I'm not sure how many of these we're going to see 2-3 months from now, you know, when something newer and hotter comes along. They're not broken in any obvious way, which of course means that, you know, they're just going to sit in the sea of other ships. I guess we can talk a little bit about this engine boost. I think this is the first time I'm really going in depth with a ship on this channel that has one of these styles of consumables where you essentially get to pick when you want to use it. And you can, if you want to, just use the whole thing up in one chunk. I'm just going to be honest. I don't really like this style. I don't hate it, but I think the old school style is actually way more flexible and powerful. And that may seem counterintuitive, but it's an interesting lesson in game design. One of the most valuable resources in most games, including World of Warships, you especially see this in games like RTSs, you know, the StarCrafts of the world. But one of the most valuable resources you have is your brain attention span, like your brain power, the number of things you can think about at once. And when you use the old style consumables, you only really have one decision point, right? And that's when you use the consumable. Everything after that is kind of automatic. With these more manual, I guess, or you choose consumables, you have an endless, well, not endless, but you have a long stream of decision points. Yes, you have the decision when you start using it, but then you have a decision essentially ongoing of when to turn it off. So you have to keep that mentally in your mind. Cognitive load, it's called sometimes. And that can be kind of debilitating. I mean, when you're trying to think of a lot of other things, like right here, I'm not 100% sure that I still want this consumable on. like again, poor penetration on these shells, right? 3 hits on a cruiser. It isn't even all that angled, and I didn't get anything. Now, okay, more angled, and all of a sudden I get, citadels, but the guns will kind of let you down on the Chios a little bit. Also on this Vesser, I'm not going to get particularly good results out of the AP. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. Usually, so there's a few things about these, I'll call them new style consumables. One is you get much less total time. You got more time if you add up all of the durations of all the old style consumables. And I assume that trade-off is made because the assumption is that this is a more powerful mechanism, and therefore they're going to nerf the total amount available to you. Either that, or maybe it just seems kind of absurd to give you like 3 straight minutes of consumable. But I just like the old style better. It kind of, because oftentimes that's the amount of time you roughly want to be in that speed boost state. I mean, of course, you'd love to just have it forever, but you're usually toggling it on because you need it for the next period of time. And while the time span chosen for you by the consumable might not be exactly what you wanted, it's usually fairly close. And I'm just not sure there's all that huge of an advantage to turning it on and off. And the turning it on and off is a little bit fiddly because, you have delays, which makes sense. I mean, you turn it on and then you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can turn it off. And then of course, when you turn it off, there's a cooldown, and that cooldown can be almost as long as the cooldown would have been for the old style consumables. So you're just not getting that much more flexibility. I guess the main thing you're getting is you can keep it on for longer, but then if you do that, you're really only using it once or twice. Again, man, I just want a little more from these guns. I mean, look how close range I am, and that was like flat broadside. And I mean, I did get 3 penetrations, but this is the problem. I'm fighting a mirror match here, and so the Chios is very well armored and has poor penetration on the guns, so that's not a winning combo. I am going to get this guy here, I believe. Yep. So finally a Citadel through the rear, but he's going to get this torp in on me, and I've already taken so much damage. And there's another battleship right ahead of me. I'm not saying that Chios is a bad ship. I don't think it is. I think it's fair, I think it's reasonable. It has some advantages and disadvantages. It's well armored. The guns are not that great. It's got these torpedoes. It's got that speed boost. I think that's an appropriate power level for a tier 7 battleship. So I'm not complaining. I'm not saying it's a bad ship. I think it's fair, which of course means that no one's going to play it because nobody wants fair, right? Fair's not what you want. You want overpowered. So this game should be over in about a minute or two. But yeah, I mean, not a bad result, right? 2 kills, 82,000 damage on a ship that I've never played before. I think the Chios is comfy. because of the range on that torpedo and the availability of the speed boost, the Chios felt reasonably quick and maneuverable without being overpowered. It's a very reasonable battleship. The guns are a little underwhelming, but they're all right. They do their job. You do get a 23-second reload, which is super comfy. I do really like that. So, I guess it makes sense, right? If you're going to give somebody 8 350s and let them reload every 23 seconds, you've got to make some sacrifices somewhere. And what they seem to have done is just lowered the penetration values, which I get. I think that's a very reasonable game design decision. I think it's going to be disappointing for guys like Potato Quality, right? Anybody who wants black ribbons and wants responsive, predictable guns. I don't think the Chios is going to be the ship for you. It's more like a GK enjoyer who can deal with some inconsistent guns in return for some ability to tank damage and, these torpedoes and that speed boost. Is that a trade-off that, you want to make? I don't know. If you are interested in the Chios, I guess I would pick it up now, while it's quote unquote free, if you're interested in that monthly pass. But I don't think you're like missing anything. I wouldn't have FOMO. If you see a bunch of Chioses, and you're like, oh man, I wish I had one. I don't think they're anything really all that special. I don't think it's particularly amazing. You're not missing out. And if you're fighting against a Chios, just, don't be too afraid of his guns. Be careful with those torpedoes. Maybe don't brawl him. Stay away from him. Burn him down with HE. And if you get a good opportunity to take a broadside shot, then go for it. I think the Chios is an easy ship to wear down with your traditional tricks of torpedoes and HE spam and airplanes and all that other kind of stuff. I'm sure submarines are good against the Chios. I would not brawl him, but other than that, I wouldn't be too afraid of his guns. So that'll be it for this one, and I'll see you guys in the next video.